Hey, this is Nick. I want to do a little video on D7 configuration. Um, let's get started. Okay, first thing I have in the config is the behavior tab page. This has got everything on it that really controls how D7 acts and what your experience is going to be like. So, if anything you visit in configuration, this should be it. Let's look at the first item up in the startup behavior column. The first item is start D7 under the system account or force F8 startup. So you have three options: normal startup, force F8, and system mode. Now, F8 menu is this menu, as you see here, which I call the F8 menu because if you hold down F8 as you're starting D7, it will pop up this box. Sound familiar? In any case, that is the F8 startup menu. From here you can do various things. You can have normal startup, enable debug mode, a few other items, disable the graphics, start straight up in offline mode. You can manipulate your custom startup script. That's another topic. Run in system mode, which basically runs D7 under the local system account, which is useful to bypass file system and registry permissions. Note that you cannot do this on a network share, even if the drive is mapped. Next we have service mode, which is equivalent to holding shift while starting D7. This starts D7 as a system service. So it will run under the local system account. It will start its internal version of Kill 'em All, and it will keep restarting Kill 'em All until it completes. So if some malware terminates Kill 'em All, then it will continue to respawn itself. Then it will immediately go to the malware page. Also cannot start this mode from a network path. Finally, we have some buttons. You can choose to close D7, launch the configuration, start D7 with cloud config, which enables you to immediately download your configuration set from dcloud, and then we just have the start D7 button. At the bottom we have a timer, and if you have this menu enabled, it will always pop up even when D7 is restarting itself automatically without user input. That is the purpose of the timer. If you don't move the mouse, the timer doesn't get cut off. It will count down, and D7 will start by itself and continue doing whatever it's supposed to do. So that's the F8 menu. Next we have start D7 with processor priority. You can do normal, above normal, or high. I didn't see the point in adding below normal or low. I do above normal. High is probably not the best idea in the world. And really I don't see much of a difference, if anything, by having a different processor priority. I just thought it was a neat trick, so we can do it. Next we have show hidden and super hidden files. Well, we know what this is. This is equivalent to doing your thing in here. You're familiar with doing that. I'm sure you're used to doing that on every system you work on. That and file extensions, which is the option directly below it. You always want to see these items. So D7 automatically shows them to you when you start D7 if these items are checked. Next we have disable user account control on startup. Has side effects. This used to work beautifully until Microsoft patched, I guess you might call it a vulnerability or something that D7 was using to, and perhaps some malware as well, had been using to disable user account control, and without a reboot. And now they've done something, and it has rendered my old method null and void. So I have a new method, but it sometimes when you do that, you'll end up having to restart Explorer .exe manually from Task Manager. So right now that's kind of a no-no. But otherwise, like I said, it used to work beautifully, and I hope to get it to work beautifully one day again. And I'll make a big announcement when I do. Below that, we have enable shutdown restart prevention. If you tick that, D7 will essentially keep the computer from shutting down or restarting while you're working if another application tries to restart the computer. And I am going to say the caveat is that a force restart, which is what D7 does when you choose to restart from D7, will always restart the computer. There's no stopping that. But most average programs don't use that, so this is effective. And then we have install shell extensions. This puts right-click context menus here, as you see. We have a bunch of different extensions here which enable you to do various things depending on what you're doing with the file. Like you can register, unregister a DLL, directly defrag one file, run a file with command line parameters, open a command prompt where the file is located. Of course, we've got delete and rename and other functions as well. Google, blah, blah, blah. Next item is stop processes and services on startup. Now this used to be quite a neat little feature. It used to be that you could stop a lot of antivirus software from running when you started up D7 by using one or two or a combination of these two different lists that you can add to the processes and services. But unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is just not feasible these days. So it's really only good if you want to add a bunch of stuff that is not necessarily malicious, but you see it frequently running on a lot of systems and you don't want it to. So it's kind of useful for that. Next, we have check for D7 updates, which I do recommend. D7 updates are often critical, and other times packed with nice new features that you'll want. So I always recommend that. Then we have check Windows event log for issues. This actually is what triggers this alert, which is currently saying event log is clean. If you have warnings in the event log, it will be blue, and it'll say check event log. Or if you have errors in the event log, it will be red. Now this does add, I don't know, a good second or two to D7 startup time, maybe a second. So you can disable that for a little startup speed and just examine the event log manually if you prefer. Then we have check device manager for issues. This actually looks at the forces this alert: device manager is clean. If I had anything in the device manager that did not have a driver installed or something like that, then you would get an alert right there, provided this was checked. We've also got check Windows activation on Vista 7, and I should include 8 as well. Now on XP it's automatically checked because it is a very fast thing. It is very slow on Vista 7 and 8. You can see here it prompts this alert: activate Windows, because this virtual machine is not activated. Thing about that is D7 does keep track of the computer name of the PC that you're working on, the network computer name, I should say. And if it detects a change in that computer name, it thinks you're working on a new computer. So it will check for activation again. However, if it does not detect a change in that computer name, it will not check for activation again. So only on that initial startup will this occur, this activation check. That's why I recommend to go ahead and leave it checked, because it's only going to happen once per system that you're working on. Next we have check HKCR / blah 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 shell open command. This is a very old thing, and I think I'm going to rip the option out for that. But essentially, it just checks the run key executable branches and extensions and other things under HKey classes root in the registry. It checks their open command for anything malicious or out of the ordinary. Check time zone is the next thing that we have, and you have to put in your time zone as it appears in as it appears by the tzutil/g command. So I will just show you that really quick on Windows 7. And you can probably just guess what that is, but okay. And if you see if I do tzutil/g, I have Eastern Standard Time. So you can just directly copy that and paste it in here, and that will be your time zone check. If, of course, you're not in the correct time zone, it will prompt you to change it to the correct time zone. This doesn't work on Vista, by the way. Vista is the only OS that D7 cannot automatically change the time zone. It's the only OS that Microsoft did not provide a method for you to programmatically change the time zone. It did on XP and it does on 7 and 8, which is interesting. Then we have brand OS at every D7 startup and install a custom URL desktop shortcut. This actually is configured in the OS branding tab, and by brand I mean the OEMinfo.ini and .bmp that you see on Windows XP, and Vista. All of this stuff you see in the system properties. Right here, for example, in Windows 7, you can have a logo appear there or what have you. A lot of people, for some reason or another, actually want to brand the OS, every OS for every computer that they work on with their own name. I don't personally agree with that, but that's what this feature is for. The neat thing about this is you can use it to install a custom URL desktop shortcut, which is under common info on the OS branding, and custom URL desktop shortcut. You can give it the URL, the name for the shortcut, and a custom icon if you want. You can choose that to do the default browser or always Internet Explorer, if your site has compatibility issues with the real browser, I guess. Next we have general behavior, and some people are finicky about what D7 does in the registry, and they don't like D7 automatically restarting itself. So this first option, don't add D7 to run once reg key, is here for that purpose. This will screw up a lot of D7's functionality as far as automation is concerned when it needs to restart itself or restart the computer. If it doesn't automatically start back again, then there's going to be a problem. D7 always removes that key when it's shut down properly, or when you do a shutdown from D7's menu. The only other thing I guess I can say about that is worst case scenario, if D7 for some reason crashes on a system and you just forget to run it again, or don't do it for whatever reason, and you restart the computer, D7 uses the run once registry key, so it's only going to look for it one time, and it will disappear after that. So why not? Leave that unchecked. Next item, delete items to the recycle bin. I have this on by default. This actually reduces D7's effectiveness at deleting certain stubborn, hard to delete files, but it also saves a lot of but in case you delete the wrong thing. So I have that enabled by default, but you can disable that if you like. Then we have prevent system sleep mode and prevent screensaver. This, of course, prevents the system from going to sleep or the screensaver from becoming active when D7 is running. That's very useful for your bench tech sitting around working on multiple systems, and you kind of want to glance and see what one system is doing. You don't need to go over and move the mouse because the screensaver is running. Then we have minimize D7 to the system tray. This just gets rid of it here. Replace Task Manager with Process Explorer. Now, that's a goodie. Sysinternal's Process Explorer, as we all know, is far better than Task Manager. This uses an image file execution option or something like that. IFEO, yes. Like my IFEO modifier utility. This uses that trick, which is actually the same trick that Process Explorer employs in itself when you choose to replace the task manager with itself through Process Explorer. So it's all the same methodology, but when you shut down D7, that option is removed from the registry. And the task manager will then become the default again. Then we have store last D7 run date time in the registry. What this does is you have a last run on the system info tab, and you can see that I have the date and time there, and it's actually in UK format, which I have here. But in any case, it just displays there. Some techs love to see what they or the last time they worked on a system or something like that, so people like to have that there. I don't really care myself. Then we have disable MSSE/WinDefend while running D7. This means that when you start D7, it attempts to disable Windows Defender or Microsoft Security Essentials so they don't run while D7 is running, and it does a fairly good job at that. It does fail on occasion, but generally it works for me. Then we have sync malware scan defs at every malware auto mode start. This is for when you're on the malware page. You start auto mode, for example. You want to select some items. You can start auto mode. What this will do is synchronize your malware scan definitions for the pre-malware scan and the malware scan functions before every start. And that will be however you have them configured to sync elsewhere in this config. And I'll get to that at another time. Finally, we have disable audible alerts when D7 or a custom app needs attention. If you've used D7 a bit, you've probably noticed that it will, or at least the premium, it will alert you when it, or at least most of the time, it will alert you when it requires user interaction during auto mode. For example, with custom applications or other various internal functions. This will just disable that audible alert. Now below that we have regional settings. Display dates as DDMMYYYY. That's for you non-US folks, and I know there are a lot of you. Numbers are growing daily. So that's to accommodate you guys for your typical date format. We have the UTC adjustment. Right now, it escapes me what that is for, but it is for your time zone. No, it escapes me. It is for your time zone adjustment. So if your example UTC -5, you would put -5 in the box. And then below that, we have use crucial UK scanner when clicking on RAM upgrade alert. This is for the system info page. I have the alert right here, upgrade RAM. If I click on that, it wants to launch Crucial Scan, which is Crucial.com's online whatever RAM checker, checks the specs and then recommends upgrades, specific models that will be compatible with that hardware. Also gives you stock inventory counts and pricing. There's a US scanner and there's a UK scanner, and this of course is to use the UK scanner. So you'll get your UK pricing and stock quantities and such. Shutdown behavior. We have remove foolish event log message helper.dll. This is like a 4K DLL file that D7 does install to the System32 directory at the start of on a new system. And the only thing that DLL does is prevent a bunch of garbage from being in event log entries that D7 writes. And to be honest with you, I think I'm going to just remove that, period. Then below that we have restart stop services on D7 shutdown. This is for the stop processes and services on startup. You can likewise restart those when D7 shuts down. Something else that's kind of not necessarily useful. However, the last items are what I showed you before, the show hidden and super hidden files, file extensions, and user account control. Here you can disable. You can choose to have no action on shutdown. You can choose to hide the files, hide extensions, enable user account control on shutdown, or you can choose to apply the original setting. So if originally the computer had file extensions enabled, for example, you can do apply original setting, and it will automatically put that back. Now, me personally, I apply original setting to hidden and super hidden files, but no action on file extensions. I like my people to see file extensions. I mean, they just tell you exactly what you're working with. So actually, that about does it, because all I did want to cover in this video was the basic behavior of D7 and just show you a little bit about the configuration for that. I will have more videos about more D7 configuration to follow, and then eventually I will get more videos about some other things we can do with D7 and some real-world usage scenarios. But anyway, stay tuned, and thanks for watching.